Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. Terrorist attack fuels Jewish community fears Bondi Beach attack, causes 15 fatalities, and intensifies antisemitic violence. U.S.-China tensions rise over Jimmy Lai conviction. Ukraine ceasefire talks remain unstable. Far-right leader elected in Chile. MI6 warns of expanding global threats. U.S.-led deal releases Belarusian prisoners. Airbnb faces significant fine in Spain. Americans killed in Syria by AS gunman. Lithuania responds to Belarus balloon campaign. Human rights concerns raised over Ugandan priest detention. Namaland dispute highlights South Africa's Richtersveld issues. Spain's renewable energy commitment questioned after blackout. Cambodia accused of border violence violations. Brown University shooting investigation continues. Thailand increases security measures due to conflict. Following a devastating terrorist attack on Sydney's Bondi Beach, Jewish communities worldwide are grappling with heightened fears and a renewed sense of vulnerability, particularly during the Hanukkah holiday. The attack, targeting a gathering celebrating the first night of the 8-day festival, resulted in 15 fatalities and 40 hospitalizations, marking a significant escalation in antisemitic violence. Witnesses described a scene of absolute terror, emphasizing the shock and horror experienced by those present. The attack, declared a terrorist incident, occurred as hundreds were celebrating Hanukkah, a tradition commemorating the rededication of the Second Temple of Jerusalem. This event has triggered a global response, with Jewish organizations and leaders calling for increased security measures and a concerted effort to combat antisemitism. The incident has amplified existing concerns about a rise in hate crimes targeting Jewish communities, fueled by the October 7th attack on Israel by Hamas. Data from the Anti-Defamation League reveals a threefold increase in threats against Jews in the United States since October 7th, highlighting the broader trend of escalating anti-Semitic activity. Recent incidents in the U.S., including a man setting Jewish people on fire at a community event in Colorado, an attack on Jewish embassy workers in Washington, D.C., and an arson attack on the Pennsylvania governor's mansion during Passover, have further intensified anxieties. In the United Kingdom, a car ramming and stabbing attack outside a synagogue resulted in the deaths of 2 Jewish worshippers and injuries to 3 others during Yom Kippur. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has urged Australians to resist division and hatred, emphasizing the country's commitment to tolerance. Despite the trauma and fear, Jewish communities are determined to persevere in celebrating Hanukkah, with families lighting menorahs and putting them in windows to demonstrate resilience and defiance against the forces of darkness. The events underscore the urgency of addressing antisemitism as a societal problem, demanding collective action to protect Jewish communities and uphold the values of inclusivity and respect. Jimmy Lai conviction sparks U.S.-China tensions. Jimmy Lai, the prominent Hong Kong media tycoon and founder of Apple Daily, was found guilty on 2 national security charges and a sedition charge following a 2-year trial, marking a significant escalation of tensions between the United States and China. The conviction, widely viewed as a suppression of freedoms in Hong Kong, has intensified diplomatic pressure and underscored Beijing's tightening grip on the city's autonomy. The charges centered around Lai's alleged lobbying of U.S. politicians, particularly during Donald Trump's presidency, to garner support for Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement. Prosecutors argued that Lai used Apple Daily to call for sanctions against China during the 2019 protests and subsequently, after the implementation of the national security law. Evidence presented included WhatsApp messages and a New York Times opinion piece where Lai suggested punitive measures against China. The trial exposed a key point of contention: the extent to which the U.S. government was involved in Hong Kong's political affairs. Lai's meetings with figures like Mike Pence and Mike Pompeo were central to the prosecution's case, raising concerns about potential interference. The conviction has prompted strong condemnation from international observers and fueled accusations that Beijing is using the national security law to silence dissent and curtail freedoms in Hong Kong. Critics argue that the trial represents a fundamental shift in the city's legal system, moving away from common law traditions and towards a judicial model dominated by a panel of specially selected judges. Health concerns surrounding Lai's detention have also emerged, with his family expressing worries about his well-being during solitary confinement. The Hong Kong government maintains that Lai has received adequate medical care. The case highlights the ongoing struggle for democracy and autonomy in Hong Kong, as well as the increasingly complex geopolitical dynamics between the U.S. and China. The trial's outcome and its implications will likely continue to shape the future of Hong Kong and its relationship with the international community. Ukraine ceasefire talks continue amidst shifting dynamics and recent discussions between Ukraine and the United States, alongside German and Russian counterparts, are ongoing in Berlin, aiming to establish a peace agreement with Russia. Initial discussions, involving Volodymyr Zelensky, Rustem Umerov, Jared Kushner, and Steve Witkoff, centered around Ukraine's willingness to abandon its NATO aspirations in exchange for robust security guarantees modeled after Article 5. This shift reflects a recognition of opposition within the US and Europe to Ukraine's membership. Key to the negotiations is the 20-point peace plan presented by Ukraine, intended as a foundation for reconstruction and security guarantees. Russia, particularly, remains steadfast against any Ukrainian NATO ambitions. However, the US, under President Trump, has expressed a willingness to let people fight it out, raising concerns about a lack of concrete security assurances. The dynamics are further complicated by Russia's continued military advances in the east, and its use of deep strikes on Russian infrastructure, aimed at disrupting its energy and military capabilities. Despite these efforts, Russia's leadership continues to portray the conflict as a struggle against Western aggression. Significant leverage remains with China, whose support is crucial for Russia's economic and military sustainment. The US is attempting to utilize this leverage, but the situation remains fluid. Several analysts suggest that a negotiated settlement is the most likely outcome, but this hinges on securing credible security guarantees. The US is attempting to drive a deal, but the lack of a unified front among Western allies and Russia's unwavering stance pose significant obstacles. The ongoing conflict has highlighted Ukraine's vulnerability and the need for sustained Western support, including financial aid, military equipment, and diplomatic pressure. The situation is further complicated by the potential for escalation, particularly given Russia's threats of nuclear weapon use and its continued military gains. Ultimately, the success of any ceasefire agreement will depend on the willingness of all parties to compromise, alongside the continued engagement of key international actors, most notably the United States and China. The protracted nature of the conflict and the shifting strategic calculations of the involved parties suggest a complex and potentially prolonged negotiation process. Chile-elect's far-right José Antonio Kast as president, deepening regional shift to law and order politics. The recent election in Chile has resulted in the victory of José Antonio Kast, marking the country's sharpest rightward shift since the end of the Pinochet dictatorship in 1990. Kast secured 58-30% of the vote in a runoff against leftist candidate Jeanette Jara, fueled by widespread voter concerns regarding rising crime and immigration. This outcome represents a significant trend within Latin America, mirroring recent gains for the right in Ecuador, El Salvador, Argentina, and Bolivia. Kast's platform centers on implementing strict border controls, including the construction of a wall along Chile's porous borders with Peru and Bolivia, deploying the military to high-crime areas, and mass deportations of undocumented migrants, primarily Venezuelans. His campaign capitalized on perceptions of declining security and a rise in organized crime, exacerbated by the country's northern desert borders and the influx of migrants vulnerable to trafficking. The election follows a period of low approval ratings for President Gabriel Boric and reflects a growing sentiment among Chileans who feel the country is descending into chaos and insecurity. Kast's victory has been attributed to his ability to tap into these anxieties and present himself as a strongman capable of restoring order. Despite Chile's relative safety compared to other Latin American nations, crime rates have increased, and concerns about immigration have intensified. Kast's proposals, including a police force modeled after the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, are likely to face opposition in a divided Congress. The election has already had positive effects on the Chilean economy, buoying the stock market, peso, and equity benchmark, due to expectations of less regulation and market-friendly policies. Kast's past has been marked by controversy, including his family's ties to the Pinochet regime. The election highlights a broader regional trend towards law and order politics, and a rejection of left-leaning governments. While Kast's victory is a significant win for the right, his ability to implement his radical policies will depend on navigating a divided Congress and overcoming logistical challenges, such as the difficulty of mass deportations. MI6 chief warns of expanding global threats, emphasizes technological adaptation. Britain's new head of MI6, Blaise Metruoli, is set to deliver a stark warning about the escalating global threat landscape, particularly emphasizing Russia's aggressive expansionism and the need for technological adaptation within the intelligence service. Speaking in her first public address, Metruoli, the first female chief of the Secret Intelligence Service, will assert that the front line is everywhere, reflecting the multifaceted nature of contemporary threats. She will specifically highlight Russia's hybrid warfare tactics, including cyber attacks, drone incidents near critical infrastructure, and disruptions to undersea cables, alongside the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Mitruli's speech will also underscore the importance of mastering technology, referencing the Q-branch division, a nod to the fictional technology team in James Bond films. She previously led MH6 technology and innovation teams and will advocate for fluency in computer programming languages like Python, emphasizing its relevance in the 21st century intelligence environment. The service is utilizing a dark web portal, Silent Courier, to solicit intelligence from potential sources, particularly targeting Russian operatives. Alongside Russia, Mitruwali will address the broader challenge of information warfare and indiscriminate cyber activities, citing sanctions against Russian and Chinese entities involved in these operations. The UK government has already sanctioned numerous organizations and individuals linked to information warfare efforts. Furthermore, the Chief of the Defense Staff, Sir Richard Knighton, will advocate for a whole-of-society approach to national resilience, arguing that defense and security require a broader, nationwide commitment. This includes harnessing the UK's resources from universities and industry to the rail network and the National Health Service to counter emerging threats. Sir Knighton anticipates a more dangerous and technologically mediated world, demanding a rediscovery of our shared humanity to guide the future. The speech follows a recent warning from Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper regarding the threat of information warfare, highlighting the government's ongoing efforts to counter hostile actors. The overall message is one of proactive adaptation, emphasizing the critical role of human agency and technological expertise in safeguarding UK security and prosperity. Belarus prisoner release, US-led deal sparks hope and controversy. Following complex negotiations spearheaded by the United States, Belarus has released 123 political prisoners, marking a significant shift in relations. The release, brokered by Donald Trump's special envoy, John Cole, includes prominent figures like Maria Kolesnikova, Viktor Babarika, and Nobel Peace Prize winner Alice Bialyatsky, who had been imprisoned for their opposition to President Alexander Lukashenko. The deal involved the U.S. lifting economic sanctions on Minsk, a key export for Belarus, and the transfer of the prisoners to Lithuania for a welcoming gathering. Maria Kolesnikova, a protest leader who spent over 5 years in prison, expressed no regrets about her actions, firmly believing she supported the right idea. Babarika, a former banker who attempted to challenge Lukashenko in the 2020 election, highlighted the lack of objective information available to prisoners, citing the control of state-controlled media. Bialyatsky, reflecting on his time in detention, emphasized the continued plight of the remaining 200 political prisoners still held in Belarus, including his son, Edward. The majority of the released prisoners, 114 in total, were transferred to Ukraine, where they held a press conference. Kolesnikova expressed gratitude to the U.S., Ukraine, and even Lukashenko himself for facilitating their release. Babarika prioritized his health after losing weight during his imprisonment, stating that Belarus needed him and he intended to contribute positively. The release represents a major diplomatic achievement for the U.S. and a potential catalyst for further reforms within Belarus, although concerns remain about the fate of those still imprisoned. The deal also signals a re-engagement between the U.S. and Russia, aiming for a peace deal in Ukraine, further complicating the geopolitical landscape. The release underscores the ongoing struggle for democracy and human rights in Belarus, with the international community closely monitoring the situation. Airbnb faces a $56 million fine in Spain over unlicensed property advertising, Spain's tourism-driven economy, alongside concerns regarding unaffordable housing fueled by high visitor demand, has led to a significant legal battle between Airbnb and the Spanish government. Airbnb has been slapped with a $56 million fine for advertising properties that were unlicensed or whose registration details didn't align with official records. This substantial penalty mandates the immediate withdrawal of all advertisements promoting these unauthorized rentals. The Consumer Affairs Ministry, spearheaded by Minister Pablo Bustindui, asserts that the fine is non-appealable, reflecting a broader governmental effort to combat the disruptive impact of short-term rentals on local communities. The investigation revealed that 122 Airbnb adverts violated consumer protection rules, highlighting a systemic issue with the platform's operation. Airbnb disputes the ministry's assessment, stating their confidence in the legality of the actions and emphasizing their collaboration with the Ministry of Housing to enforce the recently implemented national registration system, which came into effect in July. This system aims to regulate short-term rentals and address concerns about neighborhood disruption and the displacement of local residents. The controversy mirrors similar regulatory actions taken in other popular tourist destinations worldwide, including Barcelona, New York, Berlin, Paris, and San Francisco, where Airbnb originated in 2007. Initially driven by the demand for affordable accommodation and the avoidance of hotel taxes, the platform's growth led to a surge in hosts renting out spare rooms. However, growing concerns about disruptive behavior and the impact on local communities prompted cities to impose restrictions on short-term rentals. The ongoing conflict underscores the tension between tourism's economic benefits and the need to protect residential areas and maintain affordable housing options for local residents. The case highlights the increasing scrutiny faced by short-term rental platforms globally as governments seek to balance economic growth with the well-being of their communities. 3 Americans killed in Syria by IS gunmen. 3 American service members and a civilian interpreter were killed in Syria following an ambush by an Islamic State IS gunman. The United States Central Command CENTCOM confirmed the attack occurred while the individuals were conducting a key leader engagement in Palmyra, a location outside the Syrian president's control. 2 U.S. soldiers and the civilian interpreter were killed, while 3 other service members sustained injuries during the engagement. U.S. President Donald Trump swiftly condemned the attack as an ISIS attack and vowed a very serious retaliation. Initial assessments point to the Islamic State group as the likely perpetrator of the ambush. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights identified the gunman as a member of the Syrian security force, although no group has yet claimed responsibility. Identities of the deceased are being withheld pending notification of next of kin, a standard procedure. The attack highlights the continued U.S. military presence in Syria since 2015, primarily focused on training other forces as part of the campaign against IS. The location of the incident outside Syrian government control suggests a potential challenge to operational security. Despite the gravity of the situation, 3 injured U.S. soldiers are reported to be doing well. Investigations are underway to determine the precise circumstances surrounding the attack and to identify any potential security lapses. The incident underscores the ongoing risks faced by U.S. forces operating in Syria and the persistent threat posed by extremist groups. The Syrian government has issued a statement condemning the attack. Lithuania battles Belarus's balloon campaign. Lithuania is grappling with a persistent and escalating crisis stemming from a coordinated campaign involving giant white balloons carrying smuggled cigarettes launched from Belarus. These balloons, increasingly sophisticated in their targeting of Lithuania's main airport, have forced the closure of airspace 15 times, causing significant disruption to air travel and substantial economic losses for businesses. The Lithuanian government views this as a deliberate act of hybrid warfare orchestrated by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, seeking to undermine European security and pressure the EU regarding sanctions. The balloon's deployment has evolved from initial smuggling operations to a more calculated tactic, with a sequence of 1 or 2 balloons targeting the airport every 30 minutes. This shift reflects a strategic effort to draw international attention and force a policy change toward Minsk. Belarus's actions are viewed as an attempt to end its international isolation and alleviate the impact of sanctions imposed following the 2020 elections and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Lithuania's response involves a multifaceted approach, including deploying military police on patrol, utilizing military radar to track the balloons, and offering a €1 million prize for a solution to intercept them. The government is also considering new criminal charges to deter involvement. The situation is further complicated by the fact that Belarus has a history of hybrid attacks along its borders, most notably the orchestrated movement of migrants into Lithuania and Poland in 2021. The crisis has prompted airlines to adapt, with some relocating flights and reducing evening services to Vilnius. The economic impact is estimated at €2 million in lost revenue for affected businesses by the end of the year. The EU is advocating for a strengthened sanctions regime against Belarus, specifically targeting hybrid activities, a move that Lukashenko dismisses as nonsense. The situation is being closely monitored by NATO, highlighting the challenges posed by unconventional threats. Lithuania's determination to maintain a firm stance against Belarus underscores the ongoing tensions within the Eastern European security landscape. The balloon campaign represents a significant test of Lithuania's resilience and the broader EU's response to assertive geopolitical strategies. Ugandan priest detention sparks human rights concerns. As Uganda prepares for upcoming elections, a troubling situation has emerged with the Ugandan army admitting to holding Catholic priest, Father Deusdedit Sekabira, who had been missing for nearly 2 weeks. The initial reports indicated that Father Sekabira was kidnapped by men in Uganda army uniform, a claim that the Masaka diocese strongly refuted, describing his disappearance as a grievous wound. The military countered, stating that Sikabira was in lawful custody and would face charges related to violent subversive activities. The diocese, alongside their legal team, continue to advocate for his safe return, expressing deep concern for his well-being. The situation is further complicated by ongoing allegations of enforced disappearances and prolonged detention without trial, fueled by growing human rights scrutiny. The National Police Force initially acknowledged social media reports of the abduction, stating they were verifying the claims. Opposition leader Bobi Wine, a key rival in the upcoming elections, has vehemently condemned the detention, asserting that the armed forces have no place detaining civilians, and accusing President Yoweri Museveni's regime of turning Uganda into a state where dissent is met with unlawful imprisonment. Wine's statements echo concerns regarding the broader pattern of alleged abductions of his supporters. This incident follows previous reports, including the acknowledgement by President Museveni that 2 Kenyan human rights activists were arrested and held in a facility referred to as the Fridge after attending one of Wine's campaign events. This highlights a concerning trend of security agencies detaining opposition figures and supporters without proper legal proceedings. Furthermore, the case mirrors past instances involving other Ugandan opposition figures, such as Kitsa Bizigi, who mysteriously disappeared in Nairobi before reappearing in a Ugandan military court facing treason charges. These events underscore a systemic issue of unlawful detention and raise serious questions about the rule of law and human rights protections within Uganda. The situation remains volatile, with significant implications for the upcoming elections and the country's democratic future. Nama land dispute, unfulfilled promises and environmental concerns in South Africa's Richtersveld. The Richtersveld area of South Africa's northwest coast, historically home to the Nama people, remains embroiled in a protracted dispute over land rights and the distribution of wealth generated by a declining diamond mining industry. For decades, the Nama community, descendants of indigenous nomadic groups, have faced marginalization despite a 2003 constitutional court ruling granting them inalienable rights to their ancestral land and the minerals within. However, the fulfillment of this ruling has been severely hampered by mismanagement, corruption, and a dysfunctional representative body, the Richtersveld Communal Property Association, CPA. The core of the issue lies in the 2003 agreement, which stipulated a 51% share of mineral rights for the community and 49% for the Richtersveld Mining Company, but was subsequently altered to favor the company. Despite receiving approximately 190 million rand in reparations over 3 years and a 50 million rand development grant, the community claims they have not benefited financially, with over 300 million rand allegedly paid out without tangible results. The CPA, described as dysfunctional by departmental officials, has failed to effectively manage the funds or advocate for the community's interests. Several mining giants, including Transhexan De Beers, have sold their operations in the region, but concerns remain about the adequacy of environmental rehabilitation. While some companies, such as De Beers, have committed to rehabilitation work, the extent of the damage caused by decades of extractive industries is substantial, with abandoned mines and a lack of restoration evident across the landscape. Legal action has been initiated by Mr. Martinez Fredericks, the Nama community leader, against the CPA, arguing that it was improperly constituted and unable to represent the community's interests. The situation is further complicated by allegations of corruption within Alexkor, the state-owned mining company, and the broader challenges of state capture. The current government acknowledges the issues but struggles to implement effective solutions, highlighting the deep-seated systemic problems that continue to disadvantage the Nama community and impede the realization of their rightful claim to their ancestral land and resources. The ongoing dispute underscores the urgent need for a sustainable and equitable approach to land management and resource distribution in the Richtersveld region. Spain's renewable energy commitment, under scrutiny following blackout and nuclear debate. Recent developments surrounding Spain's ambitious renewable energy strategy are facing increased scrutiny following a significant blackout and a renewed push for nuclear energy. The country, which has dramatically increased its reliance on wind and solar power, achieving over 57% of its electricity generation from these sources in 2023, is grappling with questions about system stability and the future of its energy mix. A major blackout in April, affecting Spain and Portugal, fueled criticism of the government's prioritization of renewables, with opposition leader Luis Bertel Moreno accusing the socialist administration of fanaticism. The blackout, coinciding with a record 61.5% contribution of solar generation, prompted debate about whether an over-reliance on intermittent renewable sources contributed to the instability. While national grid operator Red Eléctrica and the government have denied a direct link, the incident has strengthened calls for a more balanced approach. Furthermore, Spain's nuclear industry is actively resisting the government's plan to close its 5 operational nuclear plants by 2035, arguing that this makes Spain an outlier among European nations embracing a nuclear renaissance. The companies operating the Almaraz plant have requested a 3-year extension, highlighting the industry's concerns about system reliability. Ignacio Ariluz, president of Foro Nuclear, emphasizes the crucial role of nuclear in providing a constant energy supply, contrasting it with the fluctuating nature of renewables. Despite these challenges, significant investment continues, with a 44 billion battery factory construction project in Figueruelas, Aragon, showcasing Spain's commitment to supporting renewable energy technologies. Red Eléctrica maintains that the blackout was caused by an unknown event, and anomalous voltage oscillations, not by the proportion of renewables. The government's stance remains firm, advocating for a green baby, green future, while navigating complex energy challenges and maintaining a diverse energy portfolio. The ongoing debate underscores the delicate balance between transitioning to renewable sources and ensuring a stable and secure energy supply for Spain. Cambodia's breach of international norms on border violence. Recent clashes along the Thai-Cambodian border have escalated into a serious humanitarian crisis, highlighting a significant breach of international law and established norms. The most alarming aspect of the situation is Cambodia's deployment of BM-21 multiple rocket launchers, utilized indiscriminately against Thai territory, resulting in civilian casualties and widespread damage to homes and hospitals. Thousands of civilians have been forced to evacuate, further straining already vulnerable healthcare systems in border provinces. Adding to the severity of the situation is Cambodia's deliberate obstruction of over 7,000 Thai nationals attempting to return home, a move reportedly spearheaded by former Prime Minister Hun Sen. This action effectively uses civilians as leverage in the ongoing military standoff, placing them in dangerous situations and violating their fundamental right to freedom of movement, as guaranteed by the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the Fourth Geneva Convention. Thailand, in contrast, has facilitated the safe return of Cambodian nationals seeking to leave the conflict zone, demonstrating a commitment to international humanitarian and human rights obligations. This reciprocal approach underscores the importance of upholding legal and moral principles, even amidst armed conflict. The use of indiscriminate weaponry and the detention of foreign civilians during active hostilities represent grave violations. Cambodia's actions are further compounded by its reputation as a hub for transnational criminal networks. The deliberate targeting of civilians and the denial of safe passage for Thai nationals threaten to solidify this negative image. While Thailand also faces legal accountability for some of the 7,000 Thai nationals involved in alleged criminal activities, the principle of due process must be upheld. These individuals remain civilians and should be treated accordingly. Diplomatic engagement is crucial to prevent further escalation and to ensure the safe return of all affected individuals. The core issue remains Cambodia's disregard for international law and its impact on civilian lives, demanding immediate and sustained efforts to resolve the conflict and protect human rights. Brown University shooting, investigation updates and detained person of interest released. The ongoing investigation into the shooting at Brown University, which resulted in 2 fatalities and 9 injuries, has seen significant developments. Initially, Benjamin Erickson, a 24-year-old Wisconsin native, was identified as a person of interest. Erickson, a decorated U.S. Army infantry soldier who served from 2021 to 2024, including sniper training and security duties near the president, had plans to continue his education at Brown University, initially enrolling in online psychology courses at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. He also held internships as a carpenter and assisted at the Gentle Giants Draft Horse Rescue in Maryland, learning horse handling techniques with the Kast detachment of the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment. However, after 24 hours of investigation, authorities announced the release of Erickson, stating that the evidence now points in a different direction. Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Naranjo explained that the initial quantum of evidence, while sufficient for detention, lacked corroboration and confirmation. This decision reflects the investigative process, acknowledging that the initial lead had to be reevaluated. The shooting occurred within a classroom setting, prompting immediate lockdown procedures and a swift response from law enforcement. While Erickson's involvement has been ruled out, the investigation continues, focusing on other potential leads and motives. The community remains deeply affected by the tragic events. Investigators are exploring Erickson's background, including his academic pursuits and personal relationships, seeking to understand the circumstances leading up to the shooting. The release of Erickson doesn't signify the end of the investigation. Rather, it represents a strategic shift in the investigative approach. Law enforcement is now concentrating on gathering further evidence and pursuing alternative avenues of inquiry. The FBI conducted a search of Erickson's family home in Wisconsin, and court records revealed a minor traffic violation from 2023. The investigation is ongoing, and updates will be provided as they become available. Heightened security measures across Thailand amid border conflict and security concerns. Thai authorities have significantly increased security measures across the country, primarily focusing on passenger screening at airports and heightened surveillance in the northeastern province of Nakhon Ratchasima. The escalating conflict between Thai and Cambodian forces along their shared border is the catalyst for these intensified efforts. Thai airports, including Suvarnabhumi, Don Mueang, Chiang Mai, Phuket, and Hat Yai, are implementing stricter passenger screening procedures, particularly for Cambodian nationals entering under the visa-free scheme. Officials acknowledge potential congestion at passport control due to this heightened scrutiny. Simultaneously, police in Nakhon Ratchasima have been directed to closely monitor Russian nationals, fueled by a report suggesting they were hired to utilize drones for sabotage targeting military sites, including Wing 1 Air Base. This prompted a province-wide alert and inspections of hotels and rental properties. The Russian embassy swiftly dismissed the report as unfounded, emphasizing the strong historical relationship between Russia and Thailand and advocating for peaceful conflict resolution. The situation has broadened to encompass concerns regarding foreign mercenaries, specifically from Eastern Europe and Northern Asia, potentially exploiting the visa-free entry to carry out security-related operations. This prompted increased scrutiny of travelers from these regions. The public is being encouraged to report any suspicious individuals. Authorities have reiterated the existing drone flight ban within a 9-kilometer radius of the air base in Karat, further bolstering security protocols. While commercial flights between Thailand and Cambodia remain unaffected, the overall atmosphere is one of heightened vigilance and proactive security measures aimed at safeguarding national security and addressing potential threats arising from the border conflict. The investigation into the drone report is ongoing, and authorities are prioritizing the safety and security of the Thai population.